cuts have begun with starting center Lloyd Cushenberry, and I'll be honest, I'm a little bit surprised. I'll tell you what the Titans will do next at center on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we are going to talk about the Tennessee Titans cuts getting started. We have two cuts, Lloyd Cushenberry, Xavier Woods. I'm going to tell you how much money that saves and what the Titans should do next at both of those spots. Plus, who is going to be cut next? We'll talk about that. Before we dive in, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. If you aren't an everydayer, what are you doing? Again, the cuts have begun. The draft is right around the corner. Free agency is a couple of weeks away. If you want to stay as up to date, as informed, and as entertained as a Tennessee Titans fan could possibly be, make sure that you get subscribed, and stay locked in with the number one Tennessee Titans podcast in the world, Locked On Titans. But with that being said, we finally got our first cut, and it's a shocker, at least to me, Lloyd Cushenberry. And there's a couple of different reasons why I am a bit surprised that the Tennessee Titans cut their starting center. Number one, it doesn't really save the Titans that much money. There's going to be $9 million of dead money, and the Titans are only going to save $3.4 million in salary cap space. So financially speaking, it wasn't really a cut that I expected. Plus, you talk about the on-field reasoning here. No, Lloyd Cushenberry did not play his best last season. Quite frankly, Corey Levin, the Titans' backup center, played better than Lloyd Cushenberry at times last year, but the 6'5", 300-pound center was coming off an Achilles tear, which at this time in modern sports is the worst injury that you can really have. And guys historically are much better a year removed from their recovery from a major injury. So I just reasonably thought, hey, keep continuity on the offensive line, keep continuity between Cam Ward and his center, give this guy another year of recovery to get back to the level of play that he was at that led to him getting a 4-year, $50 million deal from the Titans. But one thing that we have to remember here is the Titans didn't just cut Lloyd Cushenberry. They cut Lloyd Cushenberry with an injury designation, which means he simply was not healthy enough to pass his physical with the Titans, which led them to cutting him. So again, we could talk about the financial ramifications here. $9 million of dead money, $3.4 million only being saved. But the reality is, if the Titans did not feel that Lloyd Cushenberry was healthy enough to be on the roster, then it doesn't matter about the financial aspect. They simply want to move on. And that, from that perspective, with the injury designation that he was released with, that makes a little bit more sense. But the question obviously becomes now, what do the Titans do next at center? What is their move? A critical position, I would say, outside of left tackle, center might be the second most important position on the offensive line. That's the quarterback of the offensive line. They're calling protections. They're with the quarterback sliding to one side or the other. Who's picking up who in the run game assignments? The quarterback of the offensive line is the pivot position. With Cushenberry gone, that's a big hole for the Tennessee Titans offensive line to fill. Now, there are a couple of different ways that they can go about this. If you're a Tennessee Titans fan who's locked in to the football, if you truly know your football, your instant reaction might be, well, Corey Levin. Corey Levin played better than Lloyd Cushenberry last year. Corey Levin has been around the organization for a long time. Corey Levin could be an option. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a truth bomb that you may not want to hear. Corey Levin is a backup. Yes, he's a good backup as he proved last year and has proved throughout his career, but Corey Levin is a backup. You have to aim higher than Corey Levin as your starting center. I'm sorry, that's simply not good enough. So if Corey Levin is not good enough, and another reminder, Corey Levin's currently a free agent. The Titans would have to bring him back. He is not under contract with the team. Now, I want them to bring Corey Levin back. I think that makes a ton of sense to bring him back as their backup center, but that doesn't solve the starting center problem. So, couple of different routes the Tennessee Titans could go here to add a starting center. Number one, of course, they could go into free agency and get a high-end option. And quite honestly, there is only one high-end option in free agency, and it is Tyler Linderbaum, the starting safety from the Baltimore Ravens. He is an excellent player, but I'll be honest with you, we're hearing expectations that he may get $20 million per season, and I just don't think that that's a wise route for the Titans to go. Am I going to be upset? Am I going to call it a terrible signing, a bad move? No. Tyler Linderbaum is a very good player, but is he good enough to command a $20 million a year salary? I simply don't know. And honestly, I think that going out and paying Tyler Linderbaum high-end money and the biggest center contract in the history of the NFL might be a similar mistake to what they did with Lloyd Cushenberry. So I don't know if that's the answer. You look at centers, you look at pressure rate allowed. Tyler Linderbaum was in the bottom 5 of centers in the NFL in pressure rate allowed last year. Again, I think he's a good player. He's just not good enough to justify a $20 million per year contract. Now, I will say this, Linderbaum is a better athlete than Lloyd Cushenberry. And when I broke down Brian Daboll's system earlier, and you can check out my film breakdown on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel on Brian Daboll's offensive system, it does require an athletic center. So would Tyler Linderbaum check that box? Yes, I think he would. But again, is it enough of an upgrade? And you got to think about it this way as well. The Titans aren't just paying Tyler Linderbaum $20 million a year to be their starting center. They cut Lloyd Cushenberry with $9 million of dead cap. So do you honestly want to take whatever Tyler Linderbaum's salary cap hit is going to be and add $9 million to that? Do you want to pay, let's say his salary cap hit is $12, $13, $14 million. Do you want to pay $22 million per year or this year on the salary cap for your center position? I don't know if that makes a ton of sense for the Titans. So yes, they could go out and get the number one center on the market and by far and away the best center on the market. They could go do that. I just don't know if that makes a ton of sense. What I think makes more sense for the Titans is to go get a value veteran free agent. A guy like Dylan Parham. We've talked about Dylan Parham. He played guard for the Las Vegas Raiders. He has worked with Carmen Brasillo, the Titans offensive line coach. There is some versatility there where, yes, he played guard, but he might be able to play center going forward. And he's an athletic guy who would make a ton of sense. So I could see the Titans signing Dylan Parham and moving him to center permanently. A guy like Connor McGovern, who just spent 3 years with the Buffalo Bills. No, Brian Daboll was not in Buffalo during that time, but there are definitely similarities with what the Buffalo Bills have done the last few years on offense and what they did with Brian Daboll. Maybe that would be a clean fit. But the name that I am most interested in for the Tennessee Titans at center is Elgton Jenkins. Jenkins is a guy who would come over from the Green Bay Packers. At this time, he is considered a cut candidate for the Packers to save salary cap space. The expectation out of Green Bay is that Elgton Jenkins will be cut. That seems like the writing is on the wall there. Jenkins has been one of the best offensive linemen in the entire NFL over the last couple of years. Now, he was banged up last year, didn't play a ton of games for Green Bay, but prior to that, he's been great at offensive tackle, great at guard, played center. So giving you that lineup versatility, maybe if an offensive tackle gets hurt, or one of the guards gets hurt. Now you can move Jenkins to one of those spots. You bring back Corey Levin as your backup center. You let Levin play center while Jenkins kicks out to one of the other spots, and you still have a good offensive line in front of Cam Ward, which is absolutely critical. So I think Elgton Jenkins, who is going to be a cut candidate for the Green Bay Packers, actually makes the most sense for the Titans at center in free agency. Now, if you want to get a little more creative here, Creed Humphrey, who is the center for the Kansas City Chiefs right now, he is under contract, and I do not believe that he is going to be cut. But the Tennessee Titans could make a trade for Creed Humphrey. We saw a guy like Joe Thuney get traded by the Kansas City Chiefs last offseason in a salary cap deal. They wanted to save salary cap space. Joe Thuney is still an excellent player, was one of the best players in the NFL on offensive line last year. I believe that he was nominated for Protector of the Year award in the NFL. Well, the Chiefs got rid of him to save salary cap, and the Chiefs still need to create more salary cap space. So would they trade Creed Humphrey to Mike Borgonzi, who is well aware of the kind of player he is? They would have $10 million of dead money if they did it, but they would save $7 million. Now, I don't know that the financial incentive would be worth it for Kansas City, but I would trade a 4th or a 5th round pick to get Creed Humphrey as the Titans center going forward. So maybe that would make some options. If the trade occurs after June the 1st, it would save Kansas City $14 million in salary cap space. I think that would make much more sense for Kansas City. But nonetheless, there are a ton of options here for the Titans to solve the center issue. One thing that I do not think the Titans are going to do is try to draft their next starting center. Maybe they draft a developmental guy in the later rounds of the draft. I'm not saying that they won't go out and draft a guy like that. Maybe they give Jackson Slater a chance to be the starting center. Again, I don't think that that's true. I think Slater is more of a guard than a center at this point, but maybe they feel differently. But will the Titans go out and try to find their starting center for 2026 in the NFL draft? I got to tell you, I just don't think that that is going to happen. So Cushenberry is cut. Doesn't save the Titans very much money, but I do think they have quite a few options to get their next starting center in free agency, whether they go to the top of the list or whether they look for a value veteran. But with that being said, Xavier Woods was also cut, and I think that cut makes a lot more sense. But again, that's a starting safety that the Titans are going to have to replace. But again, I think there are a ton of good options for the Titans to replace Xavier Woods. And you may be thinking, Tyler, Kevin Winston is going to replace Xavier Woods, but I don't think that it's quite that simple. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill still remains open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, that's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with the right skills, right experience, and right location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, that's a job for Indeed sponsored job. And listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Again, just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now to support my show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Again, that's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. That's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Today's episode is also brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, packed schedules, a million podcasts, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. Meals come ready to fit your schedule with 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, and quick lunches. It saves you time and money. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. Again, that's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We just talked about the Tennessee Titans cutting Lloyd Cushenberry. Well, I was a bit surprised by the move, but I won't be surprised if the Titans find a good option to replace him. Now we need to talk about the other cut that happened on Wednesday night. Xavier Woods, the Titans starting safety, was cut, and that one was not a shock. So Xavier Woods was a guy who I thought was always going to be cut. He saves the Titans $4 million in salary cap space with only $1 million of dead money. So it makes a ton of sense to move on. And here's why. Just broadly speaking, this is a very, very good safety class in the draft. One of the best position groups in the entire NFL draft is at safety. Not only that, but every single year, there is good value at safety in free agency. It's like running back on offense. There's just a lot of decent safeties, not big demand for a premium position, so that drives the value down. So you're going to be able to find a safety that fits for a pretty cheap cost. So saving $4 million for Woods with $1 million dead, that's a great move. And here's another reality. Xavier Woods is not some speedster in the back end. Xavier Woods is a versatile safety. You can kind of do a little bit of everything, but he wasn't that good for the Titans when he played last year outside the beginning of the season, when he was pretty good early on, but his play fell off a cliff later in the year, and he dealt with injuries at the back end of the year. He's already an older guy at 30 years old. There's just no reason to keep him around. And when you consider the scheme switch, I talked about how Lloyd Cushenberry didn't really fit Brian Daboll's offensive scheme. Xavier Woods is not somebody who cleanly fits in Robert Saleh's scheme when you consider the other two safeties that the Titans will have on the roster. Number one, Amani Hooker. Amani Hooker fell off a cliff last year as well, and he's getting older. He was never an elite athlete with great speed. He won with his mind, his instincts, his play recognition, his route recognition. Amani Hooker is not a good enough athlete to play deep free safety like he used to do when Kevin Byard was more the forward safety. That's not who Amani Hooker is anymore. Amani Hooker is more of a box safety now that you want coming forward towards the line of scrimmage to read the quarterback's eyes and make plays on the ball. Kevin Winston, on the other hand, there are people saying, oh, this opens up the avenue for Kevin Winston to be the starting safety. This means that the Titans believe in Kevin Winston. And while I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Titans don't believe in Kevin Winston, because I don't think that's what I'm about to say, I think that Kevin Winston is more of a nickel in Robert Saleh's defense. Look around the NFL, okay? Nick Amanwari with Seattle. Kyle Hamilton with Baltimore, Jalen Petrie with the Texans. And there are other examples out there if you want to continue to go through the NFL. The nickel cornerback position is more of a big nickel with a safety in it right now. And Robert Saleh runs a ton of 4-2-5. Again, my scheme video on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel, go check that out. I did a 40-minute breakdown on Brian Daboll's offensive scheme, a 40-minute breakdown on Robert Saleh's scheme, and I showed you some of the key positions within that scheme, and big nickel is one of them. Denard Wilson used Kevin Winston in this way before he got hurt last year. He is a guy with great length, great size, great athleticism, and great physicality. Kevin Winston is essentially a really, really fast 4-3 speed linebacker. He is an excellent tackler. He is willing to put his nose in there to fill the run. He is excellent coming towards the line of scrimmage. So if you want to talk about Amani Hooker as more of a box safety, and you want to talk about Kevin Winston as more of a big nickel, especially on early downs, well, that leaves the deep free safety type safety in the Titans defense open. And Kevin Winston nor Amani Hooker fit that description. So if I'm the Titans, what I'm looking for as my third safety is that deep, rangy, free safety type that can play on the back end in Robert Saleh's cover three. Think about an Earl Thomas type of player to play in the back end and play center field, essentially, in cover three. Think about in cover four, that match cover four that Robert Saleh runs, where one of the safeties is going to come forward and match the crossing route from the backside. The other safety is going to have to run vertical with the deep route. Who is going to be that safety? And again, I think there are a lot of great options, even more options than what the Titans had at center. Again, a great draft class. You think about a guy who I mocked to the Titans before Xavier Woods was ever cut. I'm out here thinking, folks, Genesis Smith out of Arizona is a pure center field free safety, and he has great length and size at 6 foot, 200 pounds. And we just heard Mike Borgonzi and Robert Saleh talk about how important length is, especially in the defensive backfield. And so much has happened here with the cuts that's what I'm focusing on right now. But probably on tomorrow's show, maybe tomorrow's bonus show that you guys have shown incredible support for. Thank you so much for checking out the bonus show during the afternoon. But I might talk more about the questions that I asked Mike Borgonzi, his answers on David Bailey, Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, some of the other stuff that he talked about what he's looking for in the draft. And he said speed and length multiple times, which I think can help guide us to who the Titans are going to be interested in. But you know who has great speed and who has great length and can be a deep free safety over the middle of the field? Genesis Smith. And I think a guy like Dylan Thiemann, is that how you say his last name? If there's Oregon fans in the chat, let me know. Thiemann, he makes a lot of sense, but I think he's going to be more of a late first, early second round pick. I don't know if there's a lot of value there for the Tennessee Titans to pick a safety that early. But nonetheless, there's a great safety class for the Titans, and I think they could have a ton of options in the draft if they wanted to get somebody. Now, on the veteran free agent market, which is where I think the Titans do go. Now, they probably do both. They probably draft a safety at some point during the draft because it's a good safety class. They probably sign a veteran free agent who fits more in Robert Saleh's defense. And when you're looking at names like that, I want that old thing back. Bring me Kevin Byard. Bring the mayor of Murfreesboro back to Tennessee to fill that safety position. Now, is Kevin Byard a spring chicken? Is he a good enough athlete at this point in his career? Kevin Byard was never an elite athlete in terms of speed, acceleration, agility. He's another guy who wins with his mind, but he's such a great player that he could probably still play ball hawk in the back end and still roam as a free safety and make sure to make plays on the ball and not get beat deep. Is he the athlete the Titans want back there? That would be my question, but is he capable of doing it? Absolutely. Now, I got some sources in Chicago. Shout out my guy Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears. The Gary Bears at this point, right? Are they moving to Indiana? But he doesn't think that the Bears are going to let Kevin Byard go and that he's going to be brought back to Chicago. So if that's the case, I think a young player like Nick Cross makes it. Nick Cross is 24 years old. He just plays football all the time. He has missed like 1 or 2 games his entire career. I think thinking back from memory, he played 16 games, 17, 16 games last year. Nick Cross is a guy who played in Indianapolis with Gus Bradley, and he is that prototypical rangy back deep safety, and he's only 24 years old. So he fits perfectly with the time frame of the Tennessee Titans' young core. He is a freak athlete, had like a 9.99 RAS score, checked all the boxes when he was coming out of the draft. I think Nick Cross makes a ton of sense for the Tennessee Titans. If Robert Saleh wants to go with somebody who is more familiar to him, I think Jason Pinnock, who has played all of the safety spots in Robert Saleh's defense, makes a ton of sense. I think that's a guy that they can take from San Francisco, who Pinnock is only 26 years old right now. He's still young enough. That would make sense. You want to go a little bit further down. I think Andre Cisco was a guy that I liked a ton coming out of Texas as a deep free safety, a rangy guy who I think just played for Jacksonville. Jaquan Brisker is another guy from Chicago who there's injury concerns there. He's had some, and I don't think that he's a deep free safety type. You want him to kind of be more of a versatile guy, but he's a physical safety and he's long, and that can make a lot of sense. Geno Stone, who I wanted out of Baltimore a couple of years ago as that deep free safety type, coming off a season where he had 7 interceptions for the Baltimore Ravens, goes to Cincinnati, doesn't really have that great of a time in Cincinnati, but he's going to be a free agent now, and I think Geno Stone could still make a ton of sense. So again, I think there are a lot of options for the Tennessee Titans in free agency. I would love to have Kevin Byard back, but if I'm honest with you, I think Nick Cross is kind of the perfect fit for the Titans. And with the relationship with Gus Bradley, the age, the athletic profile, the length, the skill set to be a deep free safety, I think that might be my favorite free agent fit for the Titans, to get that third safety, to go with Amani Hooker and Kevin Winston, who aren't really that center fielder type. But with that being said, who's going to get cut next by the Tennessee Titans? I think we're going to be hearing about that very, very soon. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is going to give you a chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win a trip to the NBA Finals 4-2. That's right, you get flights, tickets, the whole experience. And if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. If you know ball, then you know coming out of the break, we're about to go into the best portion of the NBA season. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of Locked on Titans. We talked about the Tennessee Titans cutting Lloyd Cushenberry. I was a little surprised by that, but the Titans have some good options to replace him all over the board as well. The Titans cutting Xavier Woods, which wasn't a shock at all, and a lot of good options to replace him in free agency, in the draft, all of that. But now I want to talk about who is going to be cut next. Before I do, want to thank you for making Locked on Titans your first listen each and every day. Want to invite you guys to join the Locked on Titans Everydayer Club. The link to join is down below in the description of the podcast. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening to the audio podcast, down in the description is the link. Again, it's basically the price of a cup of coffee. I put out nonstop content all year round, always for free. And if you join the Locked on Titans Everydayer Club, not only are you supporting me a little bit further, but you get ad-free versions of the podcast in your podcast feed. You get access to a Locked on Titans group chat on Discord that is always popping off. You could send your mock drafts to me there, ask me mailbag questions, all of that. We have so much fun in there with all of my everydayers. And you get access to a Locked on Titans merch store if you want to, wear the swag while you're out and about. But with all that being said, thank you again. Check out the Locked on Titans Everydayer Club. But who's going to be cut next? Who's going to get the axe next? Well, I think obviously we have to start with L'Jarius Sneed. The Titans are going to cut L'Jarius Sneed. Let's not make any jokes about it. Mike Borgonzi was asked about L'Jarius Sneed at the Combine on Wednesday. I was there. It was awesome. And he said that, he's still rehabbing. When is L'Jarius Sneed not rehabbing? Let me ask you that question. His entire Titans tenure has been rehab. I mean, what are we really doing here? So there is no way in the world that L'Jarius Sneed is not cut before March 15th. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe it. Now, let me take this opportunity to explain this to some people. There is a thing in the NFL called a post-June 1st designation cut. What does that mean? That means that the Titans are basically cutting L'Jarius Sneed into 2026's money instead of doing it right now. Now, how does this work? The Titans are going to save more money this season if they cut L'Jarius Sneed as a post-June 1st designation. L'Jarius Sneed would become a free agent right away. He doesn't have to wait until June 1st to become a free agent, but the Titans don't get access to his money until after June the 1st. So you can cut the player now and save more money, but you don't get access to those savings until after June the 1st, even if L'Jarius Sneed gets to be a free agent right now. Now, why would the Titans do that? Well, they don't really need the money right now. They can afford to wait until June 1st to get a better saving. Basically, you just have to be patient and you're going to save more money. Teams that don't have a lot of salary cap space really can't afford to do that much. But teams with a lot of salary cap space like the Titans, they really can afford to do that. And here's the finances. If the Titans cut L'Jarius Sneed normally, like they just cut him right now, we want the savings right now, it's going to be $8 million in dead cap. And they're going to get $11.4 million in salary cap saving again right now. So the Titans saved $7 million with Lloyd Cushenberry and Xavier Woods. They're up to $107 million. Basically, with L'Jarius Sneed getting cut, they would jump up to $120 million in cap space. But if they do it as a post-June 1st designation, they would save $15 million. Again, they won't get those savings until after June the 1st, but they would only have $4 million in dead cap this year and then $4 million in dead cap next year. So essentially, they would take the $8 million of dead cap and split it between the 2 years. I don't think that that's what they're going to do. I think they're just going to outright cut L'Jarius Sneed, and I would not be surprised if, like Lloyd Cushenberry, it was with an injury designation, a failed physical release. Telling the NFL he failed his physical, that's why we're cutting him. Now, that doesn't change the money or do anything like that. But again, I think Sneed will be cut soon, and it'll save the Titans $11 million with $8 million in dead cap. Now, Calvin Ridley is the other name. And I'll be honest with you. I didn't think that the Tennessee Titans would cut Calvin Ridley as of late. Why would you do it? You're probably not going to be able to get a wide receiver one. You have all the cap space in the world with cutting Cush, cutting Xavier Woods, cutting L'Jarius Sneed. You're up to $120 million in salary cap space. Why do you need to cut Calvin Ridley? He's got the experience with Brian Daboll. They worked together at Alabama in 2017. Calvin Ridley may not be the number one wide receiver that he's paid to be, but when he's healthy, he's still a pretty good player, and the Titans need as much help as they can possibly get at wide receiver. So I really have changed my mind on Calvin Ridley. But, like with Lloyd Cushenberry, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they will cut Calvin Ridley, and Robert Saleh and Mike Borgonzi talked about those guys as of late, and they didn't sound very committal to having Calvin Ridley on the team. If the Titans cut Calvin Ridley, they'll save $13 million on the salary cap, and they'll eat $13 million of dead cap. So it's an even split. Now, again, if they do a post-June 1st designation on Calvin Ridley, they only eat $8 million in dead cap. They eat the other $5 million next year, and they save $18 million instead of $13 million. But the problem is, again, they don't get access to that $18 million until after June the 1st, and Calvin Ridley gets to become a free agent right now, which makes things a little more complicated. So it'll be curious to see, but Calvin Ridley is certainly still on the cutting block. Now, after that, Tony Pollard is next. I have been very upfront, very effusive in my belief that Tony Pollard needs to be cut. It just makes financial sense, and the Titans need a true power running back in their committee. If they cut Pollard, it would only cost them $2 million in dead money, and they would save $7.25 million. So it makes a ton of sense to cut Tony Pollard and then go sign a Tyler Algier, a Brian Robinson, a Rachaad White for $5 or $6 million and draft a running back in a decent running back class in the draft. So I think Pollard will be cut. Now, the next guy that was kind of in the Lloyd Cushenberry tier for me is Cody Barton. I don't think that Cody Barton necessarily fits in the Tennessee Titans' new defense under Robert Saleh. He is not a downhill, penetrating, aggressive linebacker, but Cody Barton did play a little bit better at the end of the season than he did early on in the season. Maybe that had something to do with T'Vondre Sweat not being out there. You know, that definitely is going to help Cody Barton. But again, the Titans aren't going to be two-gapping in the new Robert Saleh defensive scheme like T'Vondre Sweat is built for. So, you know, I just don't know if Cody Barton is a fit, and it could go either way with the finances. It would be $4.9 million of dead cap and $3.2 million of savings. It's not really financially advantageous to cut Cody Barton, but if they just simply don't want him on the team and want somebody else, then it does make sense to cut Cody Barton. So there you guys go. That's my response to Lloyd Cushenberry being cut. The guys who I think could replace him in free agency, high-end value trade options. I don't think they go in the draft. Conversations about safety, the scheme, Xavier Woods being gone, and all of the great options to replace him, and who I think gets cut next. Sneed, Ridley, Pollard, and I'm not quite as sure about Cody Barton, but let me know who you think is going to be cut next by the Tennessee Titans. Either way, roster moves have begun. The offseason feels like it's officially underway. But that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.